Good morning. Good to see some familiar faces. We'll just wait a few more seconds for people to come in. Thompson, I will mute you now.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let's start. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, and a very warm welcome. We're happy to start a new mini-series of webinars organized by the BILT project, and that's the BILT Spotlight on Africa, TVET Governance. My name is Nathalie Ax. I'm the BILT project officer at UNESCO-UNEVOC, and I have the pleasure to moderate today's session. So let me start off with a few remarks on housekeeping. We are offering interpretation into French, which you can access by clicking the globe at the bottom of your screen, and also live captioning in English, if you would like to read along. We are recording this session, and we will make the recording in English and in French available on the event webpage afterwards. Please use the Q&A button for questions to the speakers, and of course, feel free to use the chat. So before presenting the agenda and today's speakers, I would like to give you a bit of background information. For those of you who are new to the BILT project, the acronym stands for Bridging Innovation and Learning in TVET. And the objective of the project is to bring TVET stakeholders together to discuss, to jointly address current TVET challenges, and to engage in peer learning about TVET innovation. And we invite UNEVOC centers and TVET stakeholders from the 3 project regions, which is Africa, Asia and the Pacific, and Europe, to join this discussion. And the BILT project is funded by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research and implemented by UNESCO-UNEVOC with the support of BIBB. So the idea for this particular series, with a special focus on a specific type of institution and on a specific region, was born during the latest regional BILT Bridging Conference in Nairobi, Kenya, in November 2022. There we had, of course, lots of discussions, and in particular, the discussions about the implementation of innovative teaching and learning approaches again and again evolved around questions of what are enabling frame conditions for this implementation. So which institutions govern TVET in the respective country? How about recognition of prior learning? How is that regulated? Is it a major hurdle for learners? And also, how do you regulate and assess online learning offers and outcomes? So these were just some of the aspects that were brought up during these discussions. And as you know, the time at such conferences is always too short to dive into details. And therefore, we partnered with some of our UNEVOC centers to conceptualize and plan the BILT Spotlight webinars. And we want to enable a deeper exchange about these frame conditions and see what regulatory authorities throughout the continent are already doing to strengthen their TVET systems and to improve the conditions for teachers and learners. So today, we are very happy and thankful to the Commission for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, CTVET of Ghana, also one of our UNEVOC centers, to present at this first webinar of the BILT Spotlight on Africa. As some of you might be aware, Ghana has undergone several reforms in its educational sector over the past years, and one key amongst those was a reform in the TVET sector, and specifically of TVET governance. So before the reform, there were literally 19 ministries running TVET programs, and you can imagine it made coordination very challenging. There was a multitude of certification, inadequate standardization, infrastructural challenges, and these structures had to be changed to provide a more efficient and more timely integration of new qualifications and competencies into the curricula and into training regulations. So today we will hear from 3 speakers from the Commission for TVET, how Ghana overcame these challenges. We will hear from Dr. Asamoah. He's the Director General of the Commission for TVET, and he was part of the team that developed a 5-year strategic plan to restructure TVET delivery in Ghana with the goal to align it with the government's vision to use TVET as a tool for job creation, for industrial development, and for economic growth in the country. We also have with us Samuel Thompson. He's head for policy, planning, projects, research, monitoring, and evaluation. And he's also the UNEVOC Center coordinator at CTVET. Mr. Thompson coordinated the development of the 5-year strategic plan for TVET transformation, and he's currently overseeing its implementation. He also coordinated the production of the report on the skills gap analysis and audit of 7 sectors, together with skills directory and the profile of occupations of these sectors. And we have Theophilous Zogblah. He's Deputy Director, Standards, Curriculum Development and Enforcement. And in that role, he provides technical and administrative support for the development of competency-based training curriculum. And he works closely with various sector industry experts and also with instructors in academia on the development of demand-driven TVET curricula. So the structure of today's session is to hear from Dr. Asamoah about TVET governance and financing. You will have the chance to ask follow-up questions immediately after that, and then we will move on to hear from Thompson about this fragmented TVET landscape and the actions that were taken, and from Theophilus about collaboration with the industry. So together they will report on the lessons learned during this process and also try to draw some conclusions, hopefully in the discussion with all of you, how what TVET authorities from other countries can discover from this process in Ghana, can learn from it, and how a possible adaptation of the Ghanaian approach to other local contexts might work. So I hope Dr. Asamoah is here. I would like to pass the floor to him. Cannot see the full participant list.
Natalie.
No? Okay. Then I just suggest we move on and start with Thompson to give us an overview of the Commission for TVET and the reform. Please, Thompson.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to be part of this webinar series, especially when the Commission for TVET is starting the whole process. Why is it not coming? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly well.
Okay. What's the problem with it? Okay, so I think there's so Charlie with the screen sharing. What is this? Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
So where do you go back? Where do you go back?
we've managed before. So
For the screen sharing.
What is
Where's
this? Okay, click on that. Click on that.
Is it?
now,
Can you see now?
yes, we see your screen. If you go to presentation mode, yeah, that should work.
Okay. All right. So sorry for the hitch. So we are is it the outline you are seeing now?
Yes. Can you go to presentation mode so we can see the full size of the slide? It's hiding.
See where's the presentation mode?
Yeah, it's hidden behind the.
Is there?
Yeah. Yeah,
it?
there now you can click it at the
Yeah.
bottom. Yeah, perfect.
All right. So when I finish the exam. Yeah. So Natalie, Dr. Fred is ready. Should I continue or he should take over now?
I leave that to you and to his schedule. Since you are sharing already, you can continue. For me, it's fine. We can proceed in either order.
Okay.
Dr.
All right.
Asamoah.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
All right, so.
All right. So this is the outline for the presentation. We'll look at the mandates of the commission. We'll look at the evolution of how far Ghana's TVET landscape has come, the characteristics of the fragmented TVET sector. Then we'll look at the strategic plan, which we use to actually transform the TVET sector. Then the contribution of sector skills bodies to skills development and curriculum as well. Then the TVET, National TVET Qualifications Framework. Then we have skills for the future. And then we'll look at the mandates of the commission. So we have lessons learned and food for thought as well. So the commission for TVET has three main functions. Its function is to regulate, to promote, and administer TVET for transformation and innovation for sustainable development. When you pick the regulatory functions, key among them is to formulate national policies and also coordinate and harmonize and supervise all the TVET activities, including the formal and informal sectors. The Commission for TVET is also responsible for assessment and also accreditation of programs. The Commission for TVET works across the tertiary and pre-tertiary level. So when it gets to accreditation for the tertiary institutions, it collaborates with Ghana Tertiary Education Commission to provide joint accreditation. When you look at its functions under promotions, it is to facilitate research and development, facilitate collaboration between training providers and industry to promote industry-led and demand-driven curriculum, very key. Workplace experience learning, and also recognition of prior learning. These are things that the Commission is working on. It's also to promote cooperation with international agencies and also to coordinate and promote industry-led curriculum development. As part of its promotional activities, we are part of the World Skills International, so we organize skills competitions. We do the TVET Expo, TVET class, and also we have the career guidance and counseling. And when you look at its administrative functions, key under that is to take measures to ensure quality, equity, and access in the provision of TVET. We provide and maintain the national database on TVET and also source for funding to support the activities in the TVET sector. The Commission is also mandated to issue annual reports on the state of skill development in the country. That's why we work on the skills gap analysis and then the national TVET report. So a little background into where TVET has come from. Way back in 1970, we had the National Vocation Training Act, which was the first training institution that was established by Act 351. Then 1994, we had the establishment of the National Board for Professional and Technician Examinations. They were solely responsible for assessments. Then in 2000, we have the master plan to strengthen technical education in Ghana, and this was supported by one of our development partners. In 2004, we had a TVET policy document finalized, and in the same year, it got approval by cabinet. In 2006, the Council for TVET was established, and in 2008, we have the executive director starting work. So between that period was a preparatory arrangements for its commencement. Then in 2012, we had the legislation LI 2195. So with this background, it's important to put the presentation in this context so that at least where we have come from 1970 to date, we see how the TVET sector was. Way back before mainly 2017, there was a lot of challenges. And we saw it as a TVET sector that was quite fragmented. If we say a TVET sector is fragmented, we are looking at a sector that has a lot of different ministries running TVET programs. So in our case, we had 19 different ministries running TVET programs. If you took the Ministry of Employment and Labor, they had a National Vocational Training Institutes, they had the ISS, and they had the OIC. And then when you take Ministry of Education, they had a TVET in technical institutions. When you take social welfare, they also had their institutions. When you take Ministry of Sports, they also had their institutions. So about 19 of such ministries were run, and it made coordination very difficult. If you had to organize one program, by the time you go through all of them, it took a lot of time and affected efficiency. So that is one key characteristic in a fragmented. We also had the multiplicity of standards. So because different ministries were running TVET programs, they set their own standards, which was not coordinated and not related to industry standards. And therefore, it made the industry to link it with employment and also job placement. Then we also had a multiplicity of TVET-related legislations. So if you take the Council for TVET had Act 718, you take the NVTI, that is Act 351, you take the Polytechnic Act, that also had a different, so there are about 6 to 7 legislation all related to TVET, and it also made it difficult. And there was a multiplicity of testing and certification. That was another challenge. So because there was no proper coordination, then assessment was also difficult. Each institution that ran TVET programs carried its own form of assessment, and that was a bit difficult. Therein, you see that the linkage between training institutions and industry is very challenging because steps had not been taken to link the curriculum to industry requirements. Also, among the key items was poor TVET infrastructure. And this was also hinged on the low financing that associated the sector. So then investing in the sector was a challenge. There was an absence of industry standards. And therein you see low quality of instruction and inadequate instructional support. So all of these things needed to be addressed. And the council at the time, you know, the Commission for TVET came into being after the passage of Act 1023 in 2020. So before then, the Council for TVET started a lot of work, and it initiated the process of addressing all these fragmentations in the TVET landscape. So these are some of the things that we had to do. On the screen now is some of the TVET-related legislation that prevailed at the time. A lot of them. The council had its own, the Polytechnic Act was there, the NC, National Council for Tertiary Education, they had a National Accreditation Board, you had the Education Act. All of these things, all this legislation has something to do with the TVET space. So what the council did when it decided to address this concern was to organize the stakeholders' engagement, did a needs assessment of all TVET providers. Together with that was a SWOT analysis. And then when all of that was done, we looked at the recommendations, and then we developed the strategic plan for TVET transformation, which got cabinet approval and is currently bearing a lot of fruit. So briefly, these are the items that we had in the strategic plan. Governance and management was key. We also had to look at increased access, improving quality, TVET financing, and environmental sustainability. So if you look at the governance section, and that is where the focus of this, having set the tone in the fragmented state, then we needed to look at what we had to do. So part of the strategies that we were using was to ensure that we realign all TVET institutions to be under one ministry. That will address one of the major characteristics in the fragmented. Then we also had to make sure that there's establishment of sector skills bodies, and also ensure that there's proper linkage between training and industry. So we were guided by a number of strategies, and some of them had to do with legislation. So if you look at a number of legislations that were there, we, as part of our process, we needed to put some of them together. So if we take the Education Regulatory Bodies Act 1023, we have Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. This is a merger of the National Tertiary Education Commission and the National Accreditation Board. We have to put it together as one. Then if we take the Commission for TVET, we had to put the Council for TVET. We had to put the MVTI part of it, the assessment sections to be part of it, and then we had to add NAPTEX. And there was also this unit under the Ministry of Education. That is tertiary education, technical exams units. We also had to bring them. So if you take this Commission for TVET, it had to pull together about 4 different entities to make sure that there's harmony in the TVET space. This same act has the National Teaching Council, the Inspectorate Authority, and then National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. We also made sure that there was a need to have an institution that was training TVET providers. Prior to putting all these acts together, there was no tertiary education that was leading it. So we came up with the Akantin Apia Minka University for Science, Technology, and Entrepreneurship Development. There also, we realized that we still needed one unit to coordinate the activities and manage the institutions. Now we have got the regulator for all those things. Then we needed the managers of all these institutions, so we had to put together the Pre-Tertiary Act. That is Act 1049. And it is under this act that we now have the Ministry of the Pre-Tertiary Education and the Education Service on one part, and then the TVET service, which coordinates all the technical institutions and manages them. So they oversee the teachers and then the curriculum to be taught and all of that. Then we also had a Technical Universities Act, which is amended. So it took away, with the coming into being of that, the Polytechnics Act had to be repealed. Then we had the establishment of sector skills bodies also coming in. One other key thing that was emphasized was standards in standardizing curriculum to be used for training, which of course should be related to industry. So there was the focus on competency-based training, which is industry and demand, which is industry-led and demand-driven. It's an outcomes-based education training program, which is based on industry-generated standards. We call it occupational standards. So we realize that it is industry that will determine what should be taught in the institutions. This is done after we've done the market assessment to look at what emerging skills are coming up. Do we have relevant programs that industry can easily employ? So then we don't have the situation that the children of the learners who finish institutions and their skills they've acquired is not needed by industry. When we introduce the competency-based training approach, which is still being implemented, we realize that now industry's needs are closely matched by because they set the standard and it is the standard they set that we use for curriculum development. And we have industry players and then the facilitators all coming together to work on the curriculum based on the standards that have been set. Out of this, we realize that there's been a lot of progress. We did a sector skills analysis to understand the process. We introduced the Ghana TVET voucher project to open up access, and then also make sure that there's a lot of inclusion in the space, which is key. You cannot have a proper governance and management system without looking at gender and then the disability concerns. So this is just to show some of the spaces we have provided to enhance access following the legislation that was following the governance arrangement that was put together. So through that, we realized that quality needed to be looked at. So all of this is part of the process. We needed to put together the national apprenticeship policy. We needed to work on the Ghana TVET report. We needed to look at CBT implementation, and also key is the enforcement unit. So then after the institutions have taken accreditation and are running the CBT programs, there is the unit which would also go around to ensure that the standards which were put together for them to be accredited is duly followed. And then have the National TVET qualifications framework. This one ensures that qualifications are harmonized and allows for a clear progression path, which makes it easy for learners to move from National Proficiency 1 to National Proficiency, the doctorate level. So after going through all the governance arrangements, we now have a TVET landscape that is very well coordinated. You see the government of Ghana, the Ministry of Education, and then the Commission for TVET in the middle as a regulator. And we work closely with the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission and then the TVET service. TVET service looks at pre-tertiary education in the TVET space, while Ghana Tertiary Education Commission looks at the tertiary level institutions. But when it comes to TVET programs at tertiary level, it is jointly coordinated by the Commission and then GTEC. And at them, we have the public tertiary TVET institutions, the private ones, we have the sector skills bodies, we have the pre-tertiary public ones as well, and then the private TVET institutions. So I'll now hand over to my colleague, Theophilous Zogblah, to also continue from here.
Right, thank you very much, Sir Thompson, for that great presentation. So I followed up from this point, and as rightly indicated, for us to have a very robust governance system for the TVET sector requires strong partnership with the private sector. hence the establishment of sector skills bodies. And from the slide, if you ask me what are sector skills bodies, then I tell you that they are industry advisory bodies that seek to support the Ghanaian government's TVET strategy to build a skill system that produces a demand-driven, robust labor market and skills intelligence, right? So what we do is to bring subsectors within the larger sector together so that they perform this role to support skill development in the country, right? So far, having established these sector skills bodies, about 12, which we will see pretty soon, what are their contributions? So SSBs bring together major enterprises and industry actors within an industry sector to discuss skills development issues affecting their sector. So to be sure that the skills that are being churned out from the technical and vocational training institutions are aligned to the needs of their sector to make them very productive, profitable, competitive, and create employment opportunities for the youth. They also drive development and professional practice in the sector, right? So as a sector, there is a need to keep to some global standards. And so what are the professional practices? Everybody would have to adhere to that. They also influence how training is delivered to meet the skill needs of industry, so that we don't see the training institutions doing their own thing that does not align with the needs of industry. So if there's a need for much more hands-on, then they tell the training institutions per the standards they develop that the focus should be much more on hands-on, the end in mind, what will make the graduates of the TVET institutions productive at the industry level. And then they also ensure that training is relevant. Training is relevant and it's also aligned with the national skills demands of industry. Now, so I mentioned that we have established a number of sector skills bodies. As a commission with engagement with the private sector, we have identified some 22 economic sectors that have the potential for transforming the economy of the country and creating employment opportunities for the youth. And so we've taken the bold step to start the establishment of this sector skills body. So far, we have 12. We have one for the construction sector, renewable energy and energy and efficiency, the ICT, transport and logistics, agriculture, beauty and wellness, healthcare, hospitality, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, automotive, and textiles and apparel. In fact, we have established these ones with the support of some development partners like the International Labour Organization, like Ford Foundation, and also the GIZ, among other partners, and then the commission itself, right? So the essence of putting these SSB together is to ensure that they are able to identify their skills needs, and then it's matched with the kind of training that should be provided for learners to ensure that the learners can be absorbed in industry and they can also contribute to the economic transformation of the country. Right. So like Thompson rightly indicated, one of the fragmentation issues was the different certifications that are being awarded. And this also confuses employers when they are employing and people come with different certifications from different ministries, then they don't know where to place who. Of course, the content also are different. So you could imagine somebody who has done something in auto mechanics, and then one is saying that is offering national certificate one, another person is saying that is also offering certificate one, another person is also saying that is offering diploma. Then there's that confusion. So one of the issues to address that is that the commission came up with this national TVET qualifications framework in consultation with stakeholders. So now we are sure that the certification challenge in the system has been addressed through this national TVET qualifications framework. So everybody knows the progression pathways, at what level, what competencies must you have to merit what kind of employment and what kind of remuneration. So this national TVET qualifications framework addresses that issue of different awards by different bodies. Of course, TVET programs, when they are offered, I mean, they must be responsive to the needs of industry. So out of a study conducted to really find out how relevant these programs are to industry, these were some of the responses that came out. I'll just pick a few. So if you look at whether the TVET programs are responsive, and it says it meets the real needs of industry since the curriculum is industry driven. So you could have about 29.4 indicating. So you can see on that score is high. It is high because we have made the industry actors, the private sector, the sector skills bodies central to developing the content of the training programs. So if this is done through the commission's effort, then they are happy to say that, yes, the content is now relevant to the needs of industries. But among other things, whether competency-based training has helped TVET programs directed towards industry. So flowing from the first one, you could also agree no more. So you could also see that the response there is very high. It's very high. So we want to be sure that the kind of programs we are offering is very, very much responsive to the needs of industries. And that is why when they are conducting some surveys to be sure that how relevant are the programs, so that if there is any issue, it can be really tackled in the course of review of the program. So these were some of the responses that came out. And this really also guides us and then the industry people when we are developing programs. It's very, very much important. And then there was one which you can see that to lack of collaboration and willingness. I think that is not too complete here, but sometimes they want a very strong collaboration and willingness of the private sector to also partner the commission. You know, the private sector, sometimes when you are bringing them on board, it's very difficult because they are business oriented, they are time, but you would need to really strengthen that kind of collaboration. So when we get some of this feedback, it helps us to adopt various strategies to bring a lot more of the private sector on board so that all together we can all contribute to transforming the skills development space within the country. I move to the next slide. Right, so this also presents us with the future skill needs for every learner. We are talking about TVET, we are talking about skills, but is the skills or are the skills only the essential competencies that are required by future graduates or future workers? No, there are other essential skills that employers think all graduates must acquire and bring on board in the course of their work or even the course of their training. And so some of these things also came up. The need to ensure that skilled training takes care of some computer literacy in their programs is very important. And then how people can also do email communication, how they can do data analysis, do some research on the web, and then access online government services, among other things, so that we do not just focus so much on the hard technical skills, but other essential skill areas that are important to make the worker very competitive or the learner very, very to acquire comprehensive learning, so that when you go into employment, you are not just focused or narrowed to your technical area, but other relevant skills are important to develop you holistically. Right, so that is what we are doing with the private sector partnership. by reason of the establishment of the sector skills bodies, and then what they have been doing to also help the commission and the country at large to ensure that skills are aligned to the needs of industries, to make them very competitive, very profitable, and to also make them create opportunities for the youth that come out of our TVET institutions. So on this note, on lessons learned, I would defer back to Mr. Thompson, then he runs us through that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So having gone through all of these processes from the governance and working through the various processes to address the fragmentation at the coordination level, at the assessment level, bringing on board the qualifications framework to give easy progression. It will be, leadership is very critical. That is one of the key things that we came across. We needed leaders who would have the passion to drive the whole sector, to bring it to a point where the aspired or the desired goals are achieved. It was a lot of a difficult journey to bring together all the 19 ministries to be under one ministry. That is the Ministry of Education. And we saw the role leadership played in ensuring that all of this was able to be achieved. There was a lot of discussions, there was a lot of back and forth, but eventually with the passion and drive of the leaders at the time, we were able to pull that through. And now we can say that we have all the TVET institutions in the public sector, all under the Ministry of Education, and it is being managed by the TVET service, which was brought into being by Act 1049. Then we also realized that commitment of key stakeholders. When you're embarking on such a journey and the key stakeholders are not with you, it is very difficult. You needed industry to come on board. You needed all the ministries, the different ministries, employment and labor, youth and sports, gender and social protection, all of them needed to come together to commit and also have a common drive to also ensure that we achieve what we have set out to do. And then collaboration was also very important. You needed to pull together a lot of synergies, so then where there were shortfalls, we carried ourselves through and then made sure that we got to the point where we needed to be. And there's regular engagement. With these processes, you don't start and pause. The moment you begin to pause, you lose the momentum, and of course, it delays the process and it becomes, and there could be a drag. So you needed to commit regularly and engage regularly. And one other thing is also being very resourceful. This exercise or this journey required a lot of resources. And of course, you know, there'll always never be enough resources for everything. So the leaders and the whole sector, people needed to be resourceful, be very pragmatic in what they were doing, and ensure that if any task or activity or strategy had to be brought on board, they all coordinated successfully to make it work. So these are the 5 key lessons that I think that we cannot shelve. And on that, we'll say that, look, there are things that we could consider or think through going forward. I call it food for thought for our brothers and sisters whose TVET sector could have aspects or some characteristics of the fragmented TVET front. So things to consider, some food for thought. The key among them is setting your priorities. You need to get your priorities right and have your focus, know that this is what we need to start with, and this is how and when we can get to our destination if we actually commit to it. So setting our priorities is very important. And then also aligning our legislation related to the sector, the TVET sector and skills development. You cannot have several legislation in one sector, so one will pull you to the left, the other will pull you to the right. And sometimes it's difficult, working across, because if each of the leaders decide to stick to its own space, then it becomes very difficult to have any healthy collaboration. So aligning our legislation is key. Also very important is making sure that we get a buy-in of all stakeholders. That is when you get a full commitment, and when you call for collaboration and support, you're able to get it coming readily. Investing in TVET and skill development is also very important. TVET is quite expensive, and skill development is also expensive. So you need a system, a government that is committed to achieve this. And let me say that this government has really, really shown a lot of commitment in driving this process to where we are. So investing in TVET is very important, and we need such to be considered. Key also is linking industry to curriculum. My brother who just finished speaking indicated how that has influenced curriculum and how that is giving us positive feedback when you look at the responsiveness of industry to TVET needs. And learners will also indicate that the curriculum they are using now is very, very related to what industry needs. In the past, you could walk into an automotive workshop and they'll be using carburetors to teach, when all the vehicles currently in town are using injectors. Today, you go to our workshops and you have the best equipment ever, state-of-the-art equipment, which matches directly industry needs. And if you are not informed that this is a technical school, you might think that it is some company or some industry running full-time production. We have all this equipment, and there is a direct link between industry and curriculum development. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. We have come from the Commission for TVET. I presented this together with my colleague, Theophilous Tetteh Zogblah. I am Samuel Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. I think it has been very insightful, and you described a long journey, which I think lasted several years. In fact, maybe just to follow up with one question that came through in the registration form already about the coordination between stakeholders. So how did this process start? Who actually convened the stakeholders to start this process of reform, and how did CTVET, or then COTVET, get the mandate to manage this process?
Yeah, so if you look at the journey I described, leadership was very important. Commitment was very important. Collaboration and getting the right linkage was very important. So having analyzed the sector, if you look at some of the early slides that I showed, we did a survey of all the TVET institutions. So before we even put together our strategies, we were very sure of the concerns or the issues that we were going to deal with. And we set our priorities right. We noticed that we needed the right legislation to actually put everything in the right context, supported by the government, the acts that we needed. And then we also realized that industry is very critical. So then if you want to develop people with, make people get skills, and of course you don't link it to industry, then whatever skills they are going to need might not be directly required by industry. So we identified the industry as very critical. So then we went ahead to do the skills gap analysis. We started with 7 sectors. Now we have about 8 of them. And then we also realized that the information from that could help us establish the sector skills bodies. So as we established the sector skills bodies, then of course it became very necessary. So we used breakfast meetings with key actors, several forms of engagement. It could be workshops, it could be dialogues. You know, the private sector people don't have a lot of time. So the moment you invite them, and you should make sure that you make the best use of the time, so that if you take something like a breakfast meeting, you make sure that you engage and build consensus. Consensus building was very critical in all of this. And once everybody got the importance of what needed to be done, we had all key stakeholders coming on board. The engagement was I can say, more complete, and then we're able to get to where we are today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting that you have several formats how you engage with them, including breakfast meetings and, of course, surveys and so on. Yeah, very good. There are some follow-up questions regarding the sector skills bodies. Maybe we will just take one of them and then move on to Dr. Asamoah, because also financing is one aspect that was that people were curious about in the registration process. And then we can dive deeper into the discussion. So one question regarding sector skills bodies was how, if and how they are supported financially and by which institution?
All right, thank you very much. So the sector skills bodies are mainly actors in the various sectors. So if we take agri, for instance, what we did was to identify the companies and the key actors in the value chain of each of the processes. If we take the value chain in each of the sectors, you realize that agri, for instance, will have the agronomists, those who will be in the value addition process, those who will be cultivating, the warehousing, the marketing, the storage. So we needed to get companies from all of these subsectors in the agri sector. Then they come together and then they look at what is required in their space. They come together, they have their strategic plan, they have all the things that guide them in their work, and then they're able to put together. And then you asked about the financing. So currently, the commission, in fact, there's a whole lot of commitment on the part of the sector skills bodies, because I don't think that the commission can pay them what the time they commit. But when we organize sessions, then it is the commission that bears the cost for the workshops and the servicing of those things. And then whatever they are able to get from the commission, I'll say it's very minimal. It's a token compared to the time they commit and the experience they bring to it. So I think that I'll say that it's more of a collaboration, they being very committed, and then we, of course, seeing their relevance and importance, making sure that we take care of the workshops, the financing of the meetings, the sessions. And of course, they actually help us in getting the right curriculum, which of course is now directing skills acquired in the training institutions directly to industry.
Of course, they will benefit in the long run. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So Dr. Asamoah, are you there and ready to speak about TVET governance and financing?
Hi, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you too. Let me quickly go to the slides so we can share the screen quickly. I believe most of the things to be discussed has been elaborated on a little bit by my colleagues. So let's go here, share screen.
Okay.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, good morning to you all. A nice meeting everybody once again. Quickly, we just wanted to have a quick look at the education strategic plan, which has ended 2022. We are working on the next set of 5-year strategic plan, TVET financing, and some forward-looking strategies, some area alluded to by my earlier colleagues. So as it
Dr. Asamoah, sorry to interrupt.
We have
sorry to interrupt. Your audio quality is not very good.
Starting from the can you hear? Is it better now?
Maybe it helps if you turn off your video because it's quite interrupted.
Oh, okay.
Let's try that.
Now is it better?
Let's try.
Okay, let's see.
And it would be great
Now,
in the interest of time if you can stick to the 10 minutes, so we still have some opportunities for the questions and discussion.
Okay, but can you hear? Can you hear now?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So let me jump quickly to now. Can you hear?
Yeah, no, we lost you again. Yeah, we can't.
Okay, let me flip to the other computer.
Okay. Maybe in the meantime, we pick up another question that came in through the chat regarding the close cooperation with the sector skills bodies, and the person would like to know how some more details on how they are included in the development of the TVET standards.
Yeah, so Natalie,
Yeah, is it better now here?
Yeah, could be.
Okay, good.
Okay, let's try again with Dr. Asamoah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about the general education and the TVET sector. It cuts through. So we have currently we don't have the national qualification framework that the country has adopted. We are now working through that between the Commission for TVET and GTEC, that's the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, so that we can have a national qualification framework. We have the National TVET Qualification Framework, which spans from level 1 up to level 8. And that is the summary as the education structure exists in the country right now. Then hello, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, now you're back. Yeah. Yes. No. Again, not. Oh, we lost you again. Thompson, are you there?
Yes, I was talking about the TVET landscape, the Ghana TVET landscape, which start from the Ministry of Education We have the regulator for the TVET sector, which is the Commission for TVET. When it comes to tertiary regulation, it's jointly done between the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission and the CTVET. Then we have delivery agencies. The technical universities are delivery agency for the tertiary side, whilst the TVET service is the delivery agency for the public pre-tertiary institutions. Then under the commission, we have what we call the sector scale bodies that was talked about. Basically, is the industry side that is supposed to create the demand. And the sector scale bodies come from the Association of Ghana Industries, the Ghana Employers Association, and the trade associations. They set up the sector scale bodies. The country has gone through a lot of transformation from 1970 up till now, and those ones can also be finished. When we come to the commission, the mandate of the commission is to, one, regulate, promote, and administer TVET, and this cuts across both formal and informal, private, public, tertiary, pre-tertiary, and that is why we have the qualifications framework. As far as the governance and management is concerned, we have the Education Regulatory Bodies Act. In fact, you know, the country used to have our TVET system scattered across 19 various ministries. Any ministry you talk about, you see one. But now we have the Education Regulatory Bodies Act, which the government started to work on. This is as a result of the 5-year strategic plan. So we have the Education Regulatory, but then we have the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, which takes care of the Ghana Education Service for Grammar and the TVET service for the TVET institutions. We have set up what we call the an Apex University to focus on just training to support the TVET institutions. We did amend Technical Universities Act to make sure that all of the 10 are set up to support the TVET sector. Then most importantly, which never existed, is the sector scale bodies, to make sure that we are not just working on supply, but making sure we work on demand as well. So the sector scale bodies, in collaboration with our development partners. In fact, we started with ILO, and later on GIZ came on board, and we have been able to set them up with an office and everything for them to operate from. So they've talked about the sector scale bodies that we've already established, so I don't want to go in there. So we will move on to the key reforms that happened in the past 5 years, which is the 5-year strategic plan with the Regulatory Bodies Act that was set up, the National Apprenticeship Policy, TVET report, which we've started issuing in collaboration with BIBB through the GoVET office. Ghana was able to release the first TVET report last year. And as I'm talking to you, we are working in collaboration with BIBB through GoVET to work on the second TVET report. Yeah, I know they started in the 70s, and we believe that by the time we go through the 5th report, we would have improved and seen some things that the industry can utilize. And we also have the 5-year strategic plan, which ended 2022, that we are finishing with, and the National TVET qualification framework that we are working on. I want, because of time, let me move on to the TVET financing. You know, the unfortunate thing in Ghana is that TVET is solely being financed by government, and this is not sustainable. Government is putting in infrastructure for TVET institution, upgrading the existing one, upgrading alone, government and building new ones. Government is spending close to $1 billion to upgrade existing TVET institutions. And everything is coming from government. Government has increased budgetary allocation because now we have the free TVET, which, as I'm talking to you, last year, we have almost 47,000 students opting for TVET. This year enrollment, it has not completed yet, and we've crossed the 47, the mark we had last year. And all these are part of the free TVET, free secondary education. And this allocation is all coming from government. We have GET Fund, the Ghana Education Trust Fund, is supporting us to build new schools. Some already are completed and some are ongoing. In fact, yesterday I went to one of the technical universities that GET Fund supported us to provide them smart boards to make TVET more attractive. And we have scholarship secretariat supporting, student loan trust fund supporting. So if you look at TVET financing in the country, majority of the funds is coming from government or our development partners. We have KfW, the German, German, the technical cooperation and the financial cooperation. KfW, through the financial cooperation, the German government has supported us 20 million with a voucher. And as I'm talking to you, another 20 million euro is about to start. Then we have support through NUFIC and the rest. The Jobs and Skills Project is government, it's a loan that government has taken from the World Bank. So I will term it as funds from government because loan that government will pay back anyway. So if you look at funding of TVET in the country right now, it's largely supported by government. Even the sector skill bodies that we have set up is a commission that is supporting them. We hope that they are going to be raising their funds, but the commission that is supporting their operations administratively and other things. We are hoping in the near future, industry can support. Even if industry can meet government, even 20%, that would be a huge jump. As I'm talking to you now, we are going to have a skill competition. Ghana is a member of the World Skills International. And all the industry we've approached, maybe the approach is wrong. None of them, everybody will come back and say nothing, zero. Nobody is saying, so we'll end up having our development partners like GIZ, like WOOCs, the Canadian corporations and European government, they coming on board to support. These are not sustainable, that government and development partners can be able to. So the third point, which is the private sector, it's not happening in the country. So we as the commission and the government, we need to look at ways that we can improve on that part because they are going to be the off-takers of the graduates. And if their support is not coming in, or we don't have strategies to be able to do that, then it's not going to help us. Government is working on, or the commission through the Ministry of Education is working to establish what we call the Ghana Skill Development Fund. The Ghana Skill Development Fund will be a permanent fund that we can have contribution from government, contribution from the private sector, contribution from our development partners, then we can use to support. The cost of TVET is no more 3 to 4, it's almost 5 times. And it's a good step that now we have the sector skill bodies in place to tell us and to help us identify the demand. It's another step to make sure that their skin is in the game, not only government. We are looking at piloting the adopted dual system in Ghana, in addition to our competency-based training approach. And we are hoping that the industry will come on board to be able to support us. This is a summary of the skills, Ghana Jobs and Skills Project, which is about $200 million project. We move on. Then we have the, I talked about the funding support from the German government, which is now we are almost going through almost 40-something million euros. And so the question is TVET financing, how do we get it done? Even though that we can increase GET fund allocation, we can get some fund support from research fund because per the research fund that government has approved, a certain percentage, 10% is supposed to come to the commission to support skill development. GET fund always make allocation for TVET. Scholarship, the voucher system, and other things that are coming through. These are things we can look at to see how best we can support TVET financing. Institutional production unit, because if government is to put in almost $200 million project or facility in a school, we should be able to use it to generate some funds, because we visited Switzerland and some of the schools there have production units that also produce for the market. So this huge equipment, we cannot continue to import them. In addition to we manufacturing them here, they should be able to do some jobs to support. Taxes is the difficult aspect, that it's very difficult to bring on new taxes. Nobody wants taxes, but it could be an option that government could look at, which we are working through, to see whether some taxes or levies will be put in to specifically channel it toward skill development or TVET, because now the numbers are growing. Then we have to make TVET financing sustainable. Learner paying full costs for training is very difficult. Free TVET is fully being funded by government. So our best bet to us is whether to tax or not to tax is something for debate, because there are so much taxes already. Yesterday, Parliament was looking at taxes and it was heated argument. So nobody wants taxes. The industry doesn't want taxes. But if industry sees the benefit of improve and transform TVET, and their business is able to go up and increase their revenue, they should be able to support government to continue to produce their employees for them. Then we have to make it sustainable. So with these things, I think we'll be able to change the narrative. Now we have all the structures in place. We have all the transformation agendas in place. We have put in the legal framework. Now implementation is on. We are going to have some teething problems, but the major hindrance will be TVET financing. And we believe that the strategies we are putting in place will be able to help. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Asamoah. Really, thank you for also being so open about these challenges and putting some figures to this discussion, because yeah, in the end, it all depends on the resources being available. Yeah, like you say, there should be an interest from the private sector that yeah, that they in the end receive well-trained employees. And so we have one question from the chat actually diving into that, which says, do you know what are the precise reasons that explain the refusal of the private sector to financially contribute to TVET in Ghana? Have you done any surveys, or was there any way to understand their reasoning?
The first one I can attribute to is the fact that they were not part of the conversation. So until the establishment of the sector skill bodies, there wasn't a close collaboration and some responsibility given to the private sector. It was supply driven all the time. We have developed our curriculum. We have trained our people. It's either you take them or you don't take them. We never went to them to ask, what do you need? How do we sit down with you and decide? And even now, the transition, you can see how far we've lost by not really getting them to sit at the center. Even though they used to be part of like boards and councils, there was no impact because they were still complaining that your products are not fitting our needs. So now, one of the things that we need to do to get them to work is to let the sector skill bodies stand as a good mediator between the supply side and the demand side. Yeah. Then, of course,
when did they start? When did the first sector skills bodies take up their work? How long have they been in place now?
Formally, I would say 2 years. Formally,
okay.
Yeah. Formally, I would say 2 years. But still, you know, it's a new thing. Always, it has been government. Okay, from independence up till now, it's always been government. It's not like industry now. There's no CBT curriculum we are developing without it going through the sector skills committee. You know, the board for CTVET have what we call statutory committees. And one of the major leading committee is the sector skills committee. any curriculum that is approved by the commission has to go through the sector skill body. Then the sector skill body will recommend same to the sector skills committee, and they will finalize it and recommend for the board to go ahead. If there's any changes, it will go through that same process. So, and this has never been a practice. For instance, if we had practiced it for the past 10 years or 20 years, then of course they are the one telling government that this is what we need. Then you also have to tell government, how do you support government to do that? The dual system that we are working on now, in addition to the CBT, we did not decide on the companies. It's the sector skill bodies that are recommending the companies for us. Some of the companies are not used to. They are used to be on their own and going out to fish for their own employees. Now, some of them are being reluctant. We just want to have the success stories to be able to get more into it. And that is the approach that we are hoping that by May, the first set of dual TVET students will be moving from industry to the schools and schools to industry. In fact, yesterday it was exciting to hear that one of the companies want to offer their own transportation to come and pick the students from the school to take to their industry. So gradually it will be supporting and they'll be coming in. You can't imagine how much will come from industry. In other jurisdictions, industry is paying close to 50%.
Yeah.
But in Ghana here, 100% is from government. So you see, it's a toll on government. But if industries are coming in and even upgrading of institutions, industry can opt to support. Then government doesn't have to be the one always putting in money. Now we have VW assembling in Ghana, Toyota assembling. If they can offer even auto equipment to the schools, that's money saved by government that can be used towards other things. So what we need to push more, in our opinion, is to allow industry to be leading more and more and to take more center stage. They've never been. So everything is like government dictating for them, but that is not the case because they were reluctant. Now we are being conscious to bring them to be at the center.
I think what you're outlining, what we can see is actually a kind of cultural change, a cultural transformation that all the stakeholders need to go through in terms of who takes on which responsibility. And actually some questions also go in that direction that you mentioned. You are now piloting a dual system in Ghana, and there is one question. Yeah, is there a strong apprenticeship system where private partners participate in the transfer of skills and pay apprenticeships? So, and I understood you are only starting this right now.
Okay. So
is there payment involved?
No, as far as apprenticeship is concerned, I can say that Ghana has been doing it for a long time, but it's always been in the informal sector.
Yeah.
Okay, where a mother will take their child or their ward to an apprentice to train without any contract, without any formal approach, without any specific time frame for the training to happen. And even in that one, the parent will have to pay a small token to the master for accepting to use their child. So that's a traditional approach. That's why we brought the apprenticeship policy, okay, to cut across. So now the one that we are starting, the dual one, we are hoping, we cannot force it on the industry to pay them now because now they are not even part of, you are bringing them in, you have to let them bite small at a time. We are hoping that they can even agree to have the student at their place for 70% of the time. And we'll still be doing this in collaboration with the industry and even with the CBT, because the CBT approach will also be going at the same time, which is the traditional approach. We are hoping that some of the industry will pay some stipends, but we cannot make it strict because some company might be having more funds than the other company. But with the dual approach, we are not insisting that they should pay the learners because just some few years ago, learners were paying for their training. Paying for their training. Now government is saying free TVET. and now we are adding the dual TVET. So at least getting the skills and being exposed to the job market so that they can be assured of job right after school or create their own job is one good thing, one step. Then we believe that within the next 5 years, we can be looking at the lessons learned and go on to propose. But per the economic standards in Ghana now, we cannot, I'm not think we can force the companies to pay as is being done in Germany, where they pay them almost 800 to something euros a month. I don't think it's possible in Ghana now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we all have to live with very different conditions and yeah, the surrounding systems that work in this process. I would like to ask you, because you also, I think under promotion, you mentioned cooperation or international collaboration, and you mentioned partners that came in to support Ghana with the process. My question would be, since you have gained a lot of experience and lessons learned over the past years, whether you are willing to share this experience also with other regulatory bodies in the region, and if you have maybe done so in the past already, and yeah, what that could look like if colleagues from other countries can contact CTVET to learn more.
Yes, we are always ready to do that. But with our development partners, I think the most important thing first is trust. There has to be able to establish trust among the development partners. I'm bringing the Ghana approach. I remember when I first came to CTVET, there wasn't much relationship between the GIZ, which is the German Technical Corporation, and the commission, and because it might be due to past experiences. So what we first have to engage and say that it's a win-win situation for all. You have an objective, you have outcomes to achieve. I also have an outcome. The first thing is not master-servant relationship. We have to be collaboration, co-creation. So we all sit down and agreed. And one thing we're able to work with our development partners is to get them to understand what we need to, how far we need to go, and to realign their projects, because some projects always come in with a fixed outcomes, but we need to sit down and realign so that we can meet the objective, because at the end of the day, the benefit is not for the development partner, the benefit is for the country. So we need to re-engage them to realign their objectives to our objectives. And most of the time, we always tell our development partner, it's not about you giving me the money to spend, it's about me meeting my targets. So we sit down, look at the support we've gotten through GIZ and World Skills Germany. The World Skills Germany supported that GIZ gave the money to World Skills Germany. At the end of the day, when we learn more and we get more experience, maybe by the time we are even ready, we have our own funds. So that is one thing, the trust between them and getting our development partners to understand that at the end of the day, if the locals do not accept what you want to bring on board, it won't mean anything. So, and I'm happy that we've been able to build a strong relationship with Germany. BIBB, my team has meetings almost every day with BIBB. Go back, almost every day. It's like BIBB is sitting here in Ghana, and GIZ too now, well, no matter what they do, we sit down and every year we agree on what we want to achieve together. We are doing the same with WUCS, which is from Germany. We are doing the same with WUCS. Then, sorry, from Canada, Germany keeps coming to my mind. Then we are doing, so WUCS from Canada, and we are doing same with NUFIC. The Swiss government is also on board, NUFIC from the Netherlands. They come in with their plans, but we said, no, what do we need to achieve? Because you know that a lot of development funds have come to Africa, it doesn't achieve anything. If we spend it, doesn't achieve. So if we don't own it and agree on what we as people want to move with, at the end of the day, nothing will be. So that has been some of the things we've been doing, and it's been helpful. Always we are open with one another. because we don't want you to spend money and at the end of the day, you achieve just reports, but the system doesn't achieve anything. And it's been a win-win situation for all.
Thank you. I was also remembering, Thompson, I hope you are still there.
Yes, I'm still there.
Great. That we discussed back in Nairobi about the CTVET supporting institutions in your neighboring countries who are also looking at reform processes. Do I remember that correctly? Was there?
Yes, I remember.
So, because in the interest of our participants who are maybe in similar situations or facing similar challenges, are you available, and yeah, are you also supporting your colleagues in your neighboring countries, sharing your experience?
Yes, so we are available to do that, to share experience. But I also saw a question about the time that development partners contribution can go. Exactly, that is where we are looking towards, whereby we build the capacity. And what is missing locally is the private sector contribution. The moment private sector contribution goes up, development partner contribution will gradually go down. And that one is what is replacing what or supporting what government is doing. So that should be the ultimate aim for every system, to get the private sector as little as they can to provide, because they are the end beneficiaries of what we produce or we supply. So yes, definitely that should be the ultimate aim of every country.
All right, thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, our time has already come to an end. There were more questions in the chat, I'm aware, and I would also have more. Again, time is too short, but we need to close this session. I would kindly like to ask everyone to give us a short feedback. My colleagues have posted the link to the feedback form in the chat. And I will just share one more slide with some upcoming events and activities from the project. So we are planning the next BILT Spotlight on Africa, which is planned to take place with TVET from Kenya, about the recognition of prior learning. We are also heading towards our summer regional conference, which will focus on Asia Pacific this year, from 26th to 28th of June, and we will enable online participation, of course, for those who do not join us in person. We are also preparing the next learning labs. There will be 2 more this year for those who are familiar with it, other webinar series from the BILT project, and we will have the Learning Forum in November in Bonn. I would also like to point you to our latest publications and releases. So we have issued some new innovation and learning practices. You can also find the link in the chat. And we have extended the BILT Atlas of Emerging Trends. Now all 3 project regions are covered in the Atlas, so feel free to explore that. And we have a video publication coming up from Young Africa related to our latest learning lab that was carried out with them. So with this, I will close today's session. I want to thank you sincerely to all our 3 speakers. Thanks a lot for your time, for the preparations, and for sharing your experience. I hope we will have some follow-up interaction from this. Feel free to contact us and, of course, also the team from CTVET. So we look forward to welcoming you all again soon. And I wish you a nice afternoon and a nice weekend ahead. Thank you very much.